In this video, I'm regearing my 1992 Toyota Land Cruiser to 456 gears from Nitro Gear Axle to compensate for larger tires I just installed on it. Now normally on this channel, I post videos all about my 2019 Toyota Tacoma, but off camera, I've been working on my Project Land Cruiser to get it more trail ready. And since I didn't expect to make a video about this project, it's a little bit different than my norm, but after many requests, here it is. Now this is my first time doing any regear at all. I've never regeared my Tacoma before, but what ended up happening was I didn't do the regear in this garage, so I was in a different space, and then also I had somebody else helping me out because, again, this was my first time embarking on such a thing. But long story short, I did bring my camera along, and I thought after we were done I just didn't have enough footage, but looking through it, I think there is. So yeah, that's what this video is, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. As a quick disclaimer too, if you're actually looking for a guide on how to regear your 80, I do my best to explain the process here, but I'd highly suggest checking out other resources as well. If you're familiar with some of my step-by-step install videos, unfortunately, just again, because of the footage I have, this isn't going to be one of those. And then again, I was embarking on this regear for the first time myself, so my knowledge is pretty limited still, and the learning curve was pretty steep, honestly. But it was a lot of fun regardless. You guys know I like to do new things. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure I prefaced the video with that in case this wasn't what you guys were expecting. But yeah, hope you enjoy, and let me know if you guys want to see more videos and projects I have going on with the 80. Hey guys, so I wanted to take a quick minute away from this video just to announce a giveaway that I'm going to be hosting. It's been a while since I've done one, but I'm really excited for this one because I think this is seriously the best one yet. And I have to give a huge thank you to my friends at Techron, as well as a bunch of other businesses I've been working with on the back end to make this giveaway possible and sponsor some prizes. And basically, we're gonna be giving away 5 of these assorted prize boxes, and here are some cool things you could win in your box. So if you saw a prize you liked or are interested in entering the giveaway, I wanted to make this as easy for you guys as possible. So all you're gonna have to do is go to the description box down below. There's going to be a link to a Google form with some basic information that you're gonna fill out. That information is going to include your YouTube handle, email so that I can contact you if you're a winner, as well as what vehicle you drive and some prize preferences. Submitting that form will give you 1 entry into the giveaway contest, but if you want an extra entry, you can optionally follow Chevron Techron on Instagram. At the end of this giveaway, I'm going to pick 5 random winners to send these prize boxes to. And all the rules and dates and everything for the giveaway are going to be in the description box down below. I really hope you guys like this giveaway if you're interested, because you guys totally deserve the opportunity to win some cool free prizes, especially some of my favorites as you saw. So good luck to all who enter. Thank you so much, and now back to the video. By the way, the guy who was helping me and who had this awesome shirt is my friend Uncle E. We obviously aren't in my garage, so this is his shop, and he guided me through all of this and was a great teacher, as you'll come to see. Love his no-nonsense approach too. Any other place I can hit? Yeah, he was the GOAT. Okay, but getting started, obviously one of the big reasons to do a regear is to achieve that lower gear ratio for larger tires. But in my case, we also had a bigger problem with the front differential as well. This is what was inside the differential.
What? Well, we got to get all that soup out of there sooner or later.
Oh, mayonnaise. I may have been new to all of this, but I think anybody could tell you that, indeed, black mayonnaise is not what you're supposed to see inside that third member. But naturally, doing this regear would mean rebuilding the diff and replacing all the seals and everything, so we were kind of killing two birds with one stone here. So the cleaning was obviously a big aspect here. Unfortunately, we don't have a parts cleaner here, so we're doing our best with a bin and a million terry towels, and also a brush and diesel fuel, which I didn't really know but can be used as a parts degreaser. It smells pretty bad, but it's cheaper than brake cleaner, and given the mess of the front end, it works pretty well. So with the axle shafts removed, the differential out of my Land Cruiser, here I am scooping mud, grease, whatever you want to call it, out of the axle housing, and it smelled really bad, worse than the diesel fuel. Now you might be wondering, like I was, how could it get so bad? This vehicle is new to me, so I don't know its full history, and again, I'm certainly no expert, but we do have a few theories. One is that somebody packed grease in there. You know, like back in the old days, people used to put sawdust in transmissions to shut them up, or you guys actually told me that people used to put banana peels in differentials. That was my first time hearing that one, but something along the lines of that could have happened here because there was a lot of grease, and it was almost like no oil. The other thing that could have happened is my inner axle seals failed and allowed grease into the axle, but again, there was so much of it that E really thought that someone packed it full of grease. Regardless, I think we can all agree on one thing.
It ain't supposed to be like that.
So cleanup duty it was, and let me tell you, it sure took a while.
If you look here on the drive side, the face here, see all that scuffing and all that on there? It shouldn't look like that. Scuffing on there and all that, that will cause like a gear whine. Hopefully with the right oil, it doesn't do that to it.
My grease is too thick to effectively lubricate everything? Maybe. I'm just like, sure.
Maybe.
Okay.
But it could just be, that's 200,000 miles worth of wear. Like, half of doing this is doing an autopsy as it comes apart.
Right.
Try to figure out what the hell's going on.
Right.
Okay?
But now that everything was as clean as it was gonna get, it's actually time to start changing out the gears. As you saw, we already pretty much took care of most of the disassembling while we were cleaning, like removing the old ring gear from the carrier, but next is removing the bearings, and thankfully E had a press. And then obviously after, we put the new bearings on the carrier.
Yeah, it's gonna take you a month.
Yeah. So back I was at the press, but here it's critical to make sure that the races are lined up so that the bearing goes on straight.
Flip it over, I'll get you a bearing. Put that on as straight as you can.
Oh, I see. That's straighter.
Okay, let's see if it pushes straight. Just nice
really
and easy.
Slow.
That's it.
Yay! Now line up the new ring gear, and a helpful tip rather than just setting it down kind of like I'm doing here is using a bolt so that you can actually line it up properly. Then you can see we're just reassembling, adding on all these lock tabs. A lot of times people will find that Loctite is not enough to keep these ring gear bolts in place, so using the lock tabs is crucial. Now that the ring was on the carrier, it's time to deal with the pinion. And from doing this, the pinion is the harder part because there's a few adjustments to be aware of, like the pinion depth and the backlash. I did a better job of filming the rear, so we'll revisit a lot of this when we get to the other end, but this is tricky if you don't have a pinion depth setting tool. And on this front end, it took us actually 3 tries to produce a good pattern, but at the same time, there were a lot of things we learned while doing it, and that helped us when we were doing the rear end a lot quicker. But as you saw, I'm just pressing new bearings on, putting the flange yoke on, and then the pinion nut just to secure it all into place. And then the most exciting part is checking the tooth pattern. So obviously the carrier goes back in, the carrier bearing caps go back on, and the adjusters go on. And we use this yellow marking compound to observe the pattern. Now here's where I learned a lot about the correct tooth pattern, because again, this is something we had to redo 3 times to get ideal. So for the basics of gear teeth, you've got the heel and the toe. And then there's also the drive side and the coast side. Your yellow markings will tell you a lot about your pinion depth and backlash. You're going to want to look for something centered on the drive side and coast side. The coast side might be slightly towards the toe, but there should be some clearance between the contact pattern and top of the tooth. So on our very first try, almost guessing here, the pattern was not centered, a little close to the toe. Now, some people will like this contact because I think if you're staying in low gear, under high load, E said that the contact becomes more ideal-like. But since that's not what we were going for, we retried by adding more shims and then got a worse pattern. And then through that, we finally settled on something pretty centered. So that was day 1, but day 2 was installing the entire differential back into the housing, and sorry that from here on out, a lot of my clips were vertical. I was only filming on my phone, and normally in my own space and on my own time, I'm fine with setting up that perfect shot for you guys, but I didn't want to slow E down, so I did the best I could. But essentially, we start out by doing a little more cleaning, and then I put the diff cover gasket on using some provided lithium grease. By the way, all this stuff came in the Nitro Gear kit too, which was great. The old gasket was a cork one and it was cracked and peeling. With that done, the axles got greased, and now we're taking the diff and putting it on the jack, and you can kind of see here, I have to roll it in backwards just so it stays balanced on the jack, but then I turn it around when I get under there. At this point, it really is just great to have a few people around. You need at least one person on jack control and then one person under the vehicle who can shove the whole pig in there, which is difficult because it's heavy and hard to see, and you need to get things lined up obviously, but eventually, after many tries, I got it in and twisted in place.
You've got it, you're pushing it up against the housing there, and you got control of it. Now, like right now, get the jack out of there.
Move your leg, left leg.
There you go. Now, that's it.
Alright, something's stuck.
That's okay. You're just... just like that.
Good?
Yep. Then I reconnect the tie rod. And of course, connect the drive shaft. And not shown, but fill her up with some 80W140 oil, and that is the front. Man, what a piece of work. So these new gears, again, are from Nitro Gear Axle, and they're a great trusted brand, especially in the off-road industry, which is why I went with them. But yeah, if you don't know, I've been saying 456, that is the gear ratio, or basically the number of teeth on the ring gear divided by the number of teeth on the pinion. The reason to go with a lower gear ratio in my case is to again account for these larger tires. So with these 285/70 R17 size BF Goodrich KO2s that again are almost a 33-inch tire in diameter, the engine's going to work at a lower power band. And the way I like to think about it is to go the same exact speed as the original size stock tires, the engine's going to be at lower RPM, translating to less power. So what you do is you change the gears to affect the ratio of how many revolutions of the drive shaft it takes to make one full revolution of the wheel and tire. So you can do some calculations to find out, based on your objective tire size and effective gear ratio and what you need to re-gear to restore that lost power. There is a lot of stuff online. You can look up calculators. I certainly played around with them for a while, but in all honesty, I just asked around, looked on forums, and called up Nitro Gear, and everyone seemed to recommend 456 gears for my case. This creates a good balance of fuel economy, power, and of course, importantly, relieving stress off the rest of the drivetrain. Now, I could make a whole separate video on this topic alone because I just learned a whole lot myself. It's very interesting stuff and important if you're looking into doing something like this, so let me know if you guys would be interested. Hope that mini explanation was helpful, but now back to the project. In real time, you're now watching day 3, and you can see we have normal oil coming out of the rear diff. Thankfully, no more mud, so we were already off to a great start. Plus, the front end taught us a lot. Here, I did do a better job of filming the disassembly off the vehicle, but basically, you just remove the differential cover, and for a while, I was trying to work around, and I thought I could work around the sway bar, but it turns out it's just easier to disconnect it so that you have enough clearance. Then remove the drive shaft. So inside here, it's tough to see when everything's greasy and dark, but what I was looking for was this pin that goes through the spider gears. And essentially all I'm doing is removing that, and that holds them in. Then it's time to finally take that third member out. So much cleaner than the first time around, right? So something I didn't show up in the front is that you should mark these carrier bearing caps so that you don't mistake them when you reassemble. You can use a center punch to put 2 dots on one side and 1 on the other. That's what we did, and I think that's what most other people do too. Any other place I can hit? Okay. Honestly, after doing the front end, this felt so much smoother. E, of course, helped me along the way when I needed it, but I was definitely getting into the groove of things. Pig's nose came out. That's really until figuring out the pinion depth, which, if you remember, was where there was a lot of trial and error before. But being more observant and seeing these numbers written on the ring gear, Nitro literally tells you the distance from the mounting plane to the end of the pinion, which is useful because you can then take the provided shims, measure each of them with calipers, and they're really small, like thousandths of an inch, so you want to make sure your calipers are consistent, but you can do some math and figure out what you need to do to achieve that distance. And if you get it right the first time, you don't have to remove and then press the bearings and everything back onto the pinion over and over. So when putting the carrier in, you put the adjusters on just like we did with the front, and since they're threaded, you can adjust closer or further from the pinion to make sure there's a little bit of play, ultimately for oil clearance, and this is the backlash.
You don't want it pressured up all the time. You need a little bit of room to let the oil in.
And then the other thing I want to mention that you should look into, because I don't have a great video of it here, is the pinion bearing preload. But with those things, we're ready to check our contact pattern, which is the same process as what I described when we did the front. Now, this one might have been a little too close to the toe, but E seemed to think it was acceptable, so that's what I ran. So when we were finished, Eric very kindly put the diff back into the vehicle. I can't remember why I left early, to be honest with you, but super nice of him to finish up the project. But it was basically the same way you guys saw me install the front end, and then of course he put new oil in, and that was that. That was the whole regear. Pretty shortly after, I installed my larger tires, my 285s, and I've got to say, I am very happy because the power feels pretty much the same, which was not a lot to begin with, to be fully honest with you, but pretty much the same as the 265 stock size tires, which makes sense because again, the lower gear ratio compensates for them, but maybe more of those thoughts are better for a future video. But that's all I have. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this regear, watching me learn something new for the first time, and of course, huge shout out to Eric for helping me out, for his time, his expertise, and his shop and tools, of course. None of this would have been possible without him. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and again, if you want to see more videos about my Land Cruiser. I know perhaps these might be less relatable than, say, some of my Tacoma videos, but I do have a lot planned for it. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed again. If you want to connect more with me, you can follow me on my Instagram. It is at ChloeKuo Taco. I post more in real time on there. But other than that, I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.